of everybody's role really is to support members. This year is a bit of an odd year for us because we've been going through a transition with RCOT, with the way our membership is managed. You've probably had some comms from RCOT about the new portal and things. So things are moving to a more centralized way of being managed, whether it's for the best or, hopefully you'll see some improvements to the service that you get. But for this year, we've got, normally we would, obviously pre-COVID times and in normal times, your regions would run sort of in-person events, so they could go along, they would arrange speakers and things. But for this year, the guidance we've had, or the instructions we've had from RCOT, are that we're only permitted to do digital events or virtual events, whichever you want to call them. So we've got 10 of those this year, this being number 1. And we've got Ruth has joined us. Ruth is our web coordinator and our social media and our Twitter expert.
We've also got Celia join as well.
Sorry, lost me. We've got Celia. I can't see everybody on my screen. So if you're there, give me a shout out and.
Yeah, and apologies, the system just would not let me do anything once I logged in.
Yeah, I normally would have been at home, but I had to have a last-minute vet appointment for the dog because he's gone and suddenly developed an ear infection in both ears. So he's all right.
Okay.
The only appointment they had was 6:10 tonight, and it's about a half an hour drive for me to the vet. So anyway, enough about the dog. So what was that? Where was that? Yeah. So it's just. So what we've got this year, as I say, we've got 10 virtual events, this being the first. We've planned the events up to and including May. So for next month's event, which is in, I want to say the 9th of February, we've got, Sheila McIntosh is giving us a follow-up to what she presented at conference. So she was looking at housing adaptations in housing associations. So she's doing some research and review on that. So she's hoping to tell us where she is with that and sort of what happens next. So that's our February webinar. For March, it's generally going to be, it's an open networking session. So it's just giving the opportunity for members to come along and talk. If there's, you can kind of make it like a peer supervision type arrangement. If you've got any particular burning questions that you want to ask each other, it's about making sure, it's about encouraging you. It's about trying to get everybody involved and share the experiences out there, because we've got 240 odd members, and there's a lot of experience and a lot of questions could be answered in that way. And it's just sort of helping you make links as well. They're all sort of spread quite widely across the country, and trying as best as we can to replicate in some small way the loss that we get from the in-person regional events. So, and then we've got in April, then we have, what have we got in April?
The Home Nations update on the
April
the 13th.
Yes, so we've got the Home Nations update, which we didn't have in conference this year. So we've got Rachel Russell, who's going to give us an update on what's happening in England. We've also got Shane Elliott, who's the Northern Ireland rep, to tell us what's happening in Northern Ireland. We have Jill Pritchard, thank you, our very own Jill, who's going to tell us what's happening in Scotland. There's lots of stuff that's been going on, and Jill is very involved and active in the work that's going on around housing in Scotland. And we have Di Davis, who's the Royal College of OT's RCOT professional advisor for Wales. So hopefully you'll be able to tell us what's been happening at this end of down this way. So has anybody got any questions? Do the regional reps want to jump in and just explain what
just so you know that
in their region?
We've also got in May, we've got Ruth talking about the mental capacity at Dolls, I think, on the 11th of May.
Yes. Sorry, completely forgot that one. Thank you very much, Michelle. Thank you very much. Yes. So that's the first session that you're interested in, or you want to find out more about. And I'm sure if there's something that's burning, or you've got a burning question, or you've recently come across something that's new that none of us might have heard about, or then we'd be excited to find out, and at least then we can share that across all of our membership. So any ideas are welcome. If you want to email me direct, my email address is chair@rcotss-housing.co.uk. So has anybody got any questions, anything they want to tell us, anything they've got a burning desire to find out? Anybody?
Your dog, I feel very sorry for your poor dog.
Oh, he doesn't like the car.
Oh, right, okay.
And he's been to the vet, so he's not happy chappy.
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know if Ruth, I don't know if you want to tell us what's been happening with sort of social media and what you've been up to recently, or what you've been or what's gone out, or sort of what as our social media coordinator that
I can do that. I can do that. I just want to apologise. No, because on my screen it's showing me as David Owen, and it's very, very confusing. But so I suppose two parts of the role. One is to keep an eye on the RCOT website and try and make sure that the information that's on there is up to date and accurate, and highlights anything that somebody looking to find out what the section does. That side of things, as David has mentioned, with the changes with RCOT, I think that's going to be a developing aspect of it, because the information does need updating. It doesn't have a full list of committee members, but I'm aware of that, so I'm doing that. But the main thing that we do is we have a Twitter account, and you don't have to be a member to follow the Twitter account, so hopefully we can kind of pick up and highlight key aspects across all 4 nations and internationally. We've got members right across the world who are Twitter followers right across the world, and a real mix. It's not just housing OTs. So what I do is keep an eye on anything that comes up that I think is of interest, and highlight that, and obviously remind people when the bulletin comes out, and also kind of try and publicise aspects like this. And for kind of anyone who's wondering why we're only on Twitter, there has been some discussion about having a Facebook page, but it was felt that other groups, including like the Foundations one, they cover most of what we would include, so it just seems to be replicating other people's information. And I looked at Instagram as well, because obviously there are some people who are more into Instagram. I'm definitely not going down TikTok route. That's for somebody else.
Oh, come on, Ruth, you'd be awesome TikTok.
When the rest of the committee put up their TikTok videos first, that'll be fine. And then I'll have left by then, I think. But yes, I think at the moment, for the speed and the responsiveness and trying to just keep it as a manageable level, I think Twitter's working. I've tried to increase the amount that's tweeted, and my New Year's resolution is to try and have some pre-planned activity through the year, such as maybe highlighting a particular role on the committee once a month, obviously highlighting all the webinars. But it's also a way of people sometimes direct messaging us with queries. And I suppose the only 2 kind of caveats is, one is a definite: we cannot advertise any job roles. It doesn't matter whether they're specifically in housing. We are not allowed to retweet or like anything to do with employment. And then we have to be a little bit careful with the retweeting of requests for people to respond to surveys that are linked to research. So sometimes, you know, people will send me things and I can't respond to them, but it's not that I'm ignoring them, it's just that the rules and regulations say that that's not allowed under the RCOT banner, if that makes sense.
We're
So
also
are there any-
restricted, aren't we, as well, with what we can do with companies that we may well work with. We're not allowed to promote, suppose in brackets, promote them.
Well, that's an interesting one. We can't promote products specifically, but it seems that if we're even-handed with promoting webinars, which obviously over the last couple of years that's been a key aspect, the guidance appears that if we make sure that we support as many webinars as we can across as many providers as we can, then we're not breaking the rules, because obviously that's a key educational aspect these days for OTs. So it's a bit of a balancing act, and one I think, you know, we would still at times have to seek guidance on, but we're getting there.
Thank you, Ruth. Oh, and I can see that Celia joined us as well. Celia's our secretary. She keeps the show on the road, keeps me organised, and keeps the rest of us organised. So we've got Jill and Michelle, who are our regional reps. I don't know if Jill, Michelle, you want to jump in and sort of explain what you're doing in general as regional reps, and what sort of been going on in your areas. Maybe not at the moment, but historically, some of the things that we would usually do pre-pandemic, and hopefully if things go back to normal, we'll get back to doing the activities that we like.
Shall I start then? So I've been a regional rep for many years, and in the background sometimes, and then supporting my colleague Sarah Harris for a while. We used to do two regional study days a year, face to face, which were a mixture of sort of we used to sometimes get companies in to discuss certain products, new products, and they used to sometimes sponsor the sort of lunch, and then we'd have any sort of interesting projects or work that people thought that would be useful for us to hear about in our region. But unfortunately, obviously, due to the pandemic, we've not had any face-to-face. And some of us are not really that. Well, I put my hands up. I'm not a technical person, so being able to sort of set up and run a webinar is not in my skill mix. So so obviously we've now relied on doing it on a national basis rather than just in a regional basis. I know there are some regions that are a bit more maybe a bit more technical and been able to do something, but certainly by myself I've not been able to do anything in the north, east, northwest. I also work jointly with Marnie Walker, who's based now in Sheffield. So we've sort of done some met up a couple of times, and we went to the OT show together to see if there was anything that we thought that we could set up as far as an interesting set of webinars for people within the restrictions that we've got with the college. And we're hoping to do some of those in the latest webinars that in the year. And we did have an event where we did have a face-to-face event in a way, because we had the Brooklyn Hotel in Manchester had won lots of awards for its accessible design, and we had an open invite for people to come and have a look at it. And I think there were about 4 people turned up, all separately at different times, but it was actually something different that we actually managed to get round and have a good view around this award-winning hotel that was done in conjunction with Motion Spot, who were at the conference this year. So that was an interesting thing, but obviously people still weren't comfortable to come on in a big group, but there were at least 4 people, I think, who did come to have a look around. So that's really my sort of feedback, really.
I know, Jill, you've been at Scotland. The Scotland region has been pretty active over the last sort of year or so, haven't you, and running up pre-pandemic.
Yeah, thanks, David. Yeah, so so like Michelle in Scotland, before COVID, we used to have 2 face-to-face sort of CPD sessions each year. We struggled to know where to have them across Scotland. That was always a bit of a challenge, you know, trying to have them not be too central belt-ish. And we tried having them a bit further north. Perth, that's not that further north, but I mean, we got good turnout, but it's always been a challenge, that whole kind of geographical thing in Scotland, as I'm sure it is in other parts of
Wales and similar.
Yeah, so in some ways we've moved to having 2 virtual sessions each year since COVID. God, is that 2 years? Heavens. And that's worked really well. And it's been great because we've had like colleagues from Shetland and further afield joining because they've been able to. So there's been a wee bit of a positive there. The sessions that we tend to run tend to really use occupational therapy colleagues and focus on good practice. But like Michelle, we're very grateful for sponsorship for lunches and things in the days when we had the face-to-face. But we tried to kind of draw on expertise across Scotland, and as I say, sharing good practice. It's one of my big kind of bugbears is I think we're not good at sharing good practice, and Scotland's quite small and we should be much better at it. And I know lots of OTs are beavering away doing lots of really good things all across Scotland in housing and the kind of interface between housing and OT and adaptations and all of that good stuff. And we need to be much better at kind of learning lessons and things, and hopefully some of these webinars might give us an opportunity to do some of that. And it's great that Sheila's doing her session a bit later in the year. So other than that, as David says, there's a lot going on in Scotland at the moment. We had the Scottish Government launch their Housing to 2040 vision. It must be 2 years ago now. We were involved in the consultation up to that, and we've been involved in the work that's going forward from that, which is very, very relevant to us as occupational therapists. We're reviewing the kind of national social housing design guide. I say we, somebody has been seconded into Scottish Government to do that, but we're very much in touch with that person, and we work very closely with our what are they called now? The professional advisors for each of the countries. So yeah. You mentioned your Welsh guy. So we have Alison Kerr in Scotland, and she and I work really closely together, and she's very good at, as soon as she picks up anything going on in Scottish Government or in the Parliament, even vaguely to do with housing, social care, adaptations, equipment, anything like that, she gets in touch with me, and we draw on my membership, our membership. Which is great. So that tends to work really well. And I suppose that's where the other side of that, I'm complaining about the fact we're not very good at sharing, but in some ways we're quite good at networking and drawing people in and drawing expertise in, and Alison's been pivotal in that. So yeah, lots of good things going on, and I suppose it's that balance going forward of how much we do virtually and how much we do face-to-face, because there are advantages. I think, David, even with our last 2 national conferences that we've had, we've actually maybe pulled in people that wouldn't have travelled to attend in a particular place. That would have been difficult for them, but because they could join virtually, and because they could dip in and out as well, I think, rather than come to the whole thing.
2020 and 2021 conferences were about, on most days, there were about 100 delegates in most of the sessions. Over, especially this year, there was about 100 delegates in each session, and I think our ARM was really well attended with about 60 or 70 delegates.
Yeah.
So in terms of the virtual offer being able to reach a wider audience, that was fantastic. And obviously last year and this year, we had the benefit of being able to offer it at zero cost to members. Yeah. So again, that's a huge plus to our virtual. But I think there is. Yeah. Hopefully going forward with restrictions easing. Personally, I don't mind I like the virtual stuff, because it means you can dip in and out. You can decide when you want something. You can look at, oh, I don't want to go to that session, but I want to go to something else. But I think there's something I think what we've lost is some of the soft stuff that happens in you know, when you're queuing to get your coffee and your biscuits, or when you're sitting down to have lunch. It's just that ability to network. I know some of the digital platforms do have that, but we just wanted to keep, when we did our conferences last year and the year before, we kind of wanted to keep it as simple as possible. We're just about to start planning our this year's conference, which we are hoping, I've got fingers crossed, toes crossed, but anything else I can cross, that we're going to be able to have it at RCOT HQ. And it's planned for the 3rd and 4th of November, but we will hopefully have we will have a backup plan also to that. So, but hopefully it will be an in-person event.
Yeah, no, that would be great.
Possibly, if we might need to do a little bit more research and a bit more fine-tuning, we may even be able to offer a blended event, but I don't want to make that as a cast-iron guarantee, because one, I'm not sure how difficult that would be with the tech we've got, or whether we would need to get any professional services in, and whether that would be quite costly. So that's something we'll be looking at. But look out in the newsletter for updates on conference. You will find it also on the RCOT events page, and it should be in OT News. We're hoping to get those out to you as soon as we can. That being said, also there's some updates with our comms. You might have noticed that the frequency of the newsletter has gone down somewhat. So it was on average, in my post, what I used to do before the chair, I was the newsletter editor. So you sort of probably saw we did a newsletter probably every 3 weeks or so. With the changes at RCOT, it's now running, it'll be issued monthly towards the end of the month. So Matthew Box, who was on the independent practice section, is now our network editor. So he's been diligently working away at getting exciting content to you. But again, with the changes, there are some stipulations and a bit more, I want to say, guidelines from RCOT. That means you might find that it's perhaps doesn't look how it used to. So they have got some guidelines because they're trying to bring all the formats from all the sections to sort of look uniform, and it's kind of saying, oh, click here for more to find out more. So, but you will find the dates on our regular webinars. They will be in that newsletter. They'll also be on the RCOT website, and you should be able to book them through the RCOT website, and you should, fingers crossed, that'll all work more smoothly, certainly more smoothly than this evening. So tonight really was sort of a test to see how it worked, trying hopefully iron out some of the bugs and things. So I don't know if you want to tell us a little bit about your role and what you've been doing, and sort of what you do beavering away in the background for all of us. Celia, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Fantastic, thank you.
Right, so I suppose my main role really is just taking the minutes and organising the quarterly meetings that we have with the NEC, and also arranging for the ARM and taking the minutes from that, dealing with any queries that come through on the email. I'll try and send them to the most appropriate person to reply. What else do I do? I think that's it mainly.
It's hard to think when you get put on the spot, sorry.
Yeah. That's about it.
And we've also got, I'm not sure if I don't think Jaquel was able to join us this evening, but Jaquel Runnels is our co-opted lead for inclusive and accessible design. I hope I haven't terribly mangled Jaquel's role title, so I'm sure somebody will correct me if I have. But Jaquel works with Wandsworth Council in Wandsworth Borough, but she's very active in terms of responding to consultations. She's been actively involved in a lot of the work that's been going on in England around housing adaptations. She was also one of our leads on the Habintag wheelchair design guide, which is available to the e-version available to members at a reduced rate. I think you can buy that for a reduced rate. We'll have to check on that and get details to you. Jakel's also been involved.
David, we're still waiting for the detail on that, I think.
Oh, we're still waiting for detail on that, are we? Oh, right.
Yeah, because I think it was discussed back end of last year, but I don't know if anyone knows actually how we get it.
No, I'm not 100% sure either, I have to admit. So we'll find out about that and circulate that to you. I vaguely remember something saying that you need to email them and give them your membership number and then you get a discount code or something for the online store, but it might be easier if we can negotiate a discount code with them. You just pop it in and the discount is applied. So yeah, so Jakel is really on the pulse of government about what's sort of happening and what they're planning.
Oh, sounds like David's gone.
She did step down because she has to stay. If you step down from the committee, you have to stay away for, I think it's a year. So I'm hoping to hook her back maybe. So if anybody's interested in that role, by all means, let me know. So I don't know if anybody else has got any questions, anything they want to tell us, anything burning that they want to be done or they want to see. Again, same with the network or our webinar program and even with our conference. If you've got any ideas of what you'd like to see, themes you'd like covered, let us know, because we want to make sure that what we're delivering is right for you. So feel free, jump in, please. Or if anybody else wants to jump in.
I'd be particularly interested to know about the members that have joined us today, whether or not they're new members or if they've got any thoughts.
I can't see everybody's names, so if anybody can shout out names, or if you're
so
brave
we've got Angie Green. So I don't know if Angie wants to just say if she's a new member or she's been a member for a while, or what she's her thoughts are.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I've been a member for I think probably about 2.5 years now, something like that. So I had just recently joined, I think not long before the 2019 conference up in Newcastle. So I was able to attend that in-person conference, and that's unfortunately been my only experience of an in-person event with this group, because obviously COVID happened in March of 2020, and there's not really been any face-to-face events since then. So everything's sort of been online since then. So I'm a community OT working up in North Lincolnshire. So I've come along tonight just to sort of get to know a bit more about you all, really, and what you do.
So did you manage to go to the conference online for the last 2 years or not?
I attended, I wasn't able to attend in 2020, but I did attend the most recent one in 2021, and it was very good. I think listening to what you were saying earlier, I do agree that there are pros and cons of both, because I think that, you know, an online event, it sounds as though it was perhaps maybe better attended, A, because it was free to members, B, because it's more easily accessible to people because it's online, and because people can dip in and out and attend the sessions that they want to attend. I think there are there are lots and lots of advantages to having an online event. And personally, for me, that would be my preferred option, because when I heard you say that this year's event is likely to be down at RCOT HQ in London, my heart sank, and I thought, well, I don't think I want to go then.
Yeah, the only reason that we were planning it in RCOT this year is that it's a risk-free venue. So if for any reason it has to be pulled at the last minute, it's not actually going to cost you. It's not going to cost your membership money, because we have to be mindful that the funds that we have they have to be spent for the benefit of members, and I don't want us to be wasting a few £1,000s on a venue that we can't attend. Ideally, I'd like it to be outside of London, because it sort of draws everybody in. But in terms of if it is going to be our first face-to-face event since 2019, we wanted to try and have it in the venue wasn't costing us anything, so that our overheads were as low as possible.
Yeah,
so that's the reason.
Other thing,
that's the reason it's in London this year.
Yeah. The other thing, David, sorry, Angie, but the other thing is because Angie's only been with us in the last 2 years. Before that, when we were having in-person conferences, we moved them about the countries. So, we had one in Scotland, one in the north, the Newcastle one, as you know. We've been to Bristol, been to Ireland, so we in normal times, we moved around. And I do wonder, I think you mentioned something about a kind of hybrid approach, David. I think the technology will really improve the offer in terms of being able to stage a real hybrid event will really improve over the next year, because I think there'll be a lot of pressure on a lot of providers to provide that from various organisations, who I think will go for a mixture of sometimes having an in-person event, sometimes having a virtual event, but ideally being able to stage a proper hybrid event. Proper technology.
Well, hopefully it would work, but we need to find out how. So in line with that, I have a meeting with Kaz Dunn, who's the event team lead for RCOT. So we need to find out exactly what RCOT's event team will be able to support with. Whether doing a hybrid event is something that they can facilitate, or whether it's something, if we don't look at that this year, that we perhaps look at it for the next conference, and sort of how much that costs and what's involved. So it's what I want. Hopefully, I want all of our events to be able to everybody as easily as possible in a format that they feel most comfortable. And I have to say, Angie, I agree. I completely agree with you that virtual events are. It's much easier for people to dip in and out. It certainly cuts, it avoids need to travel, and it certainly opens it up to people who are perhaps in areas that it's not as easy to get in and out to sort of central locations from. And personally, over the pandemic, I've enjoyed the virtual events, but I've also missed some of the face-to-face. So if we can have a mixture of the two, hopefully we can meet everybody's needs. I can't see everybody else. Apart from Angie, are there any sort of topics or areas that you think we need to cover that you'd like us to find out more about? I know I'm putting you on the spot. Sorry, Angie.
That's okay. I suppose that the first thing that springs to mind is the new white paper that's just come out. I think it's a bit of a hot topic, isn't it? The new DFG white paper, and I'll be honest and say I haven't read it myself yet, but it's on my to-do list, and it's something that I certainly would like to know more about in terms of the implications of that for our practice as OTs.
I think is that what Sheila's going to be covering?
Sheila's covering housing adaptations in.
She did the review, didn't she?
She did the DFG review back in 2018, but the current piece of work is around adaptations in housing associations in England. So I don't know if that's feeded into the white paper in England. I have to confess, I'm ignorant. I wasn't aware there was a white paper in England, but my focus is because I don't practice in England. I practice in Wales, so I'm not keeping a close eye on stuff across the border as I used to. But I'll certainly have to have a look at that.
Yeah. I'm wondering if that could be something that's done maybe as one of the more regional offers.
Yeah.
So it is England centric.
Yes.
But I'm certainly not going to be putting myself forward to present on that. But I do think, kind of Michelle, if we talk to Marnie and others and see if we can come up with a plan later in the year.
Certainly we can, it's good to have sort of the sort of hot topics that people are interested in finding more information out about. So that's really helpful, Angie.
I know while the white paper is specific to England, it will also have implications for practice across the UK, and it's also good for people practicing in other parts of the UK to actually find out what's going on, because there could be things that are similar. There could be ways that we could integrate that into our practice and see what's happening, see what's being done well elsewhere, and use that without having to reinvent the wheel. So thanks, Angie. Well, I think I can see, is it Sue Lynham? I don't know if you want to say anything, Sue, if you want to sort of tell us where you work, where you're dialing in from, whether you've attended any of our events, how long you've been a member.
I've been a member that long. I was sitting here trying to think, I can't really remember, maybe a couple of years. I'm a paediatric social care OT in Southampton. So housing is quite a big part of what we do, particularly trying to rehouse some larger families that have a disabled child. That's really, and some complex adaptations. And obviously with the increase in adapting to challenging behaviour, as well as physical disability. So that's been quite a growing area of what we're doing. I do also have COVID, so I'm a little bit at the tail end of my energy, so I might not be able to do much thinking off the top of my head.
No, that's all right.
That's where I'm at. And
of the webinar as well.
It's only just because of where, my health, but that's fine. I did go to the... so Sasha's in the adults team for Southampton, and I work in the children's team, which is much smaller, but we're sat away from the adult OTs, and we're in with the children's services. So I'm in a children with disabilities team with the social workers and nurses. We're a multidisciplinary team. It's quite good.
Fantastic. Well, that's always good.
Yeah, a lot of that is focused on children with moderate to severe learning disability. So although as OTs we see children with all the whole team isn't accessible to everyone as yet. But so I do know Sasha, and she encouraged me to join, which I did. And then I was able to attend the conference online, and I found I thought it was a really good mix of kind of aspirational stuff and very practical stuff, and so
I think when we had our meeting, sorry David, when we had our meeting yesterday, we did discuss that we felt we needed to include some children's paediatric sessions in our next conference, because normally we do have one, but we didn't this time really, other than the sort of challenging behaviour part, but that was something we're trying to include.
Tiny bit, isn't it?
Yeah. Because we're aware that often it's the paediatric cases that can sometimes be the most, sometimes they tend to be not only costly but complex and complicated to manage.
Yeah, I think that would be a really good topic. Sorry, that would be a really good topic for either a webinar session, or, as you say, Michelle, maybe at next conference. I'm picking up a lot of issues up here in Scotland and a lot of challenges with finding housing and putting kind of solutions together for families with disabled children, and the combination of the kind of challenging behaviour and the complex needs and all of it. And there seems to be more and more referrals coming through. So yeah, I agree that would be a great topic.
I have
And
to
a coach.
agree.
that are bigger than the houses we can find to house them in. So it's a real, you know, what do you do? These families get a bit stuck, don't they? And I know, you know, you can say there's an element of personal responsibility and things, but people find themselves in situations. And also, what I've come across a couple of times lately is families where children were living with one parent and then are moved to live with the other parent. And then they've moved from an accessible property, because that stays with the parent who had parental rights in the tenancy, move in with dad, say, who's in like a 1 or 2 bedroom flat, and then the real struggle then to try and move the whole family again. And that just seems a bit wrong to me. It kind of feels like, you know, the property should stay with the child really once you've found something adapted and big enough. But I mean, that's a whole legal thing, isn't it? But
I'm wondering whether or not that's something, so I'm Children with Disabilities OT as well. So it just echoes exactly what we're finding. We're finding blended families. We're finding more families with more than one disabled child. You know, all of these, the housing stock isn't meeting what we need. I mean, today, referral for a family of 13, you know, 11 children. Luckily, only one of them is disabled. But, you know, I opened that
big
one
family.
up. What am I going to do? You know, I have no idea. But I think maybe there could be some, I don't know, workshop, discussion, something where we put our heads together and actually take the best of everything that other people are doing to maybe help us give a bit more in our back pocket. So when we're facing a situation, we can go, oh, someone over there did that. Because I think that's one of the things we're finding is we're all working in our own small teams. And I know what I can get away with in Lincolnshire, but I've got no evidence of what happens elsewhere outside of it. And actually, sometimes they will say, give us an example of where that's happened. So maybe some sharing like that could happen. You know, it's not necessarily
that would be really positive.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
You know, it's not about, oh, we will build an extra bedroom on. That's not the problem. It's the more complex.
We've got a family very similar that we're looking for 2 properties next to each other with the housing provider to make them into one big property.
Yeah, and I've done that with 4 in a block, where we've knocked downstairs 2 of the 4 in a block together. Do you call them 4 in a block in other countries?
No.
Okay, it's 4 flats in a block. Bash the ground floors together. I did that once. But yeah, so just having examples of what, just as you're saying, Michelle, you know, 2 properties.
It's not easy to get the housing association to agree it, because obviously, as far as their, you know, their records on what the stock is and how, you know, how they classify it,
and voids,
it involves a lot of, you know, a lot of negotiation and a lot of forward planning about trying to find something that might where you might find another property where you can do that too.
We're also struggling with how long is a piece of string. Someone applies for rehousing, how long should they wait? You know, is it 6 years like some of ours are? I don't know. You know, are there any ways that we have the ability to influence, if you're working in social care rather than for a housing provider, how, you know, questions like that and discussions like that I think would be really useful.
Yeah,
we had when we were in when we were in Halton, we used to there used to be an unmet need that was being that you had to highlight to higher management, so at a senior level. And so the housing accessible housing person, I used to submit on a monthly basis the unmet housing need for people. And when those particular big properties that were needed that didn't exist, when they were going up there month after month after months, the senior managers would then go, because they were the ones who influenced or agreed some of the developments in the borough. They would insist that some of those unmet needs were being put into the new developments. But you have to have somebody, you have to have the people above you that are prepared to do that, because, you know.
I think as well, though, we've got 7 district councils and I don't even know how many housing providers, you know, there's no one table that we could go to sit. In one district council, you've got 6 housing associations, none of which work in the others. So, you know, I would imagine in Scotland you're in a very similar position where it's so large, you must have numerous ones.
Oh, absolutely. And Glasgow's the worst. They've got 65 housing associations in Glasgow. Some of them are tiny. But the other thing I was going to say, in Scotland, the big disabled persons lobby to make housing a human right, you know, suitable housing as a human right. I imagine there's discussions going on in the other countries as well around that, and I wonder if that's where some of that discussion would happen, Michelle, you know, in terms of, you know, how long, or was it you, Ruth, that said, how long should people wait? Now, you can't make houses out of fresh air though either. You know, you need people, like Michelle says, you need people with a commitment, you know, around the table, some of the leaders to make things happen. But
yeah, I mean, the person that was influential in basically channeling the unmet housing need was the assistant director who sat on various boards with the housing association and the CCG, and basically they just kept saying this next development you have to build, because there was a particular family with 2 boys with Duchenne's that we had nothing for them at all. And they actually made them change their development to include a 4-bedroom, fully wheelchair accessible bungalow for the family.
Which
wasn't on the plan originally. They had to put one on.
Pieces like that, but it's rare. And then we have the interesting situation with the 7 district councils. 3 of them don't have their own housing stock. That was all passed across to various housing associations for management, and then the others have their own housing stock. So you have that postcode lottery as well, which means, you know, where your influence is, where the money is. It's, you know, I think if we got a group of people in the room talking about how you manage housing for children with complex disabilities, I think it'd be a really, really lively discussion.
And that's the benefit of our, again, we can do that virtually. We can use our virtual sessions in any way we want, really, whether we want to do it as a forum to discuss things like this and get as many people around a screen as possible, or a virtual table as possible. And if that's something that we think is certainly going to be of value, then I think we can facilitate that. We've got plenty of slots left. They are towards the end of this year now, so. But again, we can put those in the middle of the day. We can do it at lunchtime. We can do it in the morning, to whatever suits your needs. Sorry, I'm just. Angie's put in she's popped in the messages that foundations are running a webinar on Tuesday, the 25th of January, focusing on the white paper. So that'll certainly be an interesting one to look at and one to attend. Thanks for that, Angie. Oh God, I think I've lost. So we've heard Cherie. I don't know if you want to tell us how long you've been a member and whether you've been able to access any of the events or the resources.
Hello, I'll just see if I can turn my video on. It doesn't always work. Hi. I'm Cherie. I'm in Colchester in Essex, so one of 12 councils. I became a member about 3 years ago when I got this role, and I'm a housing OT to support hospital discharge. So I think I've been on training with Parag, who is there. Right. I think he works for FIFA, access training. So I joined, and I wasn't very involved in the first year or so, and I had trouble finding resources and joining events and things. So I felt a little bit lost and not so supported as a member. And then I put out a cry for help. I think it was 2020, early 21, because I was asked to evaluate a refurb for sheltered accommodation for 150 tenants. And I didn't know what I was doing, because this is all new to me. So I think I emailed probably the specialist section, and I was put on to Rachel Wooden, who was amazing and completely held my hand and gave me some guidance. And since then, I've been ever so keen to see what we're doing. And I absolutely loved the virtual event. I came out with more questions than I wanted, and I want to know how to take next steps on all of those topics. I absolutely loved it. I am one of 12 councils. We have 2 other housing OTs that cover a couple of other councils in Essex. We did have full coverage across Essex, but then the local councils didn't see the benefit of having a housing OT support hospital discharge.
Right, yeah, it's a shame.
Yes, we thought so. Very narrow-minded. But in doing that, what I'm also doing is trying to get consistency across Essex, so we're not having that postcode lottering, that small steps. I'm also working with the our strategic housing new build, the affordable housing, so I influence what size properties we're making for wheelchair users. I work with the housing register, so to try and accommodate these larger families that we've got that are on the housing register, I'm looking at void properties and trying to match the families to the void properties and work out what adaptations can be done. Even though it's not under DFG, if it's a council property, I can do it under DFG for a housing association. So I'm doing strategic housing, I'm doing local, trying to get the amount, the 3,000 odd people on the waiting list for a property. We're trying to clear them and make sure that the properties that we are buying, because we've got the right to buy back 100 homes at the moment,
Right.
trying to make sure what we are buying is actually adaptable, not just something that someone thinks, oh, that looks nice, but it's on a hill and couldn't get a wheelchair user up to it. So it's small steps, but I absolutely value everything you've just been talking about. I thought, gosh, I really want to, these are the conversations, and you feel like a small fish because you haven't got either the research or the other councils or the other counties or areas that are doing this, or you don't know what they're doing, so you can't sort of stand up and say, well, other councils do this. I kind of wing it an awful lot, which isn't ideal. So I'm really want to suck all the information out of this group.
Absolutely fantastic. I think we've got the flexibility to use this particular platform in a way that hopefully will support everybody's practice. And again, if we can get, and I think possibly hopefully the open networking sessions will, or if we sort of make them a sort of topic or area specific, we'll draw in the membership, and you can have, and hopefully have those conversations and make the links and share knowledge with, you never know, maybe another authority's been doing exactly what you've been doing and they've done and tested it and it's worked, and then you're not having to reinvent the wheel, and you're not alone, or you can ask people for advice. And
yeah, it's even little things like the Bedfordshire created their own DFG video, so I approached them and we've converted it to Essex. I've got a couple of tweaks to do on it, but foundations were in some of the meetings, there were local meetings that we were having about it, so that's when they approached Bedfordshire, and that's why they created the one to be used nationally, because it was just that link and that network. So I think that's really valuable stuff, and it's those little steps, because as soon as we can get more information about who's eligible for a DFG, because there's so much of a process, we can start to, because we've got a surplus of money in Colchester, not in all Essex councils, but in Colchester, we can't spend it fast enough. I don't think we've ever spent our full DFG budget, which is shameful, really. So we're not doing something enough, we're not advertising enough, or we haven't got enough OTs to get out there and assess, or people don't know that they're eligible or don't know who to ask for advice. So it's how to push that, and also how to get the flow through council stock or housing association stock. So we've got a lot of under occupiers as well, but we need those houses because we've got families that are overcrowded. So it's all those conversations about how do we get the flow through, how do we advertise it, how do we make people happy with the home environment that they're in, or multi-generational properties, how can we adapt it, how can we get technology, and how can we get the DFG to agree to technology. There's so many things that are just waiting to be done. That feels like. Sorry, I'm going on.
No, absolutely. You're clearly passionate, and it's great to see that. I mean, incidentally, talking about DFGs and spending your money eligibility, there's some changes coming in Wales. It was announced by Welsh Government in March that they were removing the means test for what they call medium scale adaptations, things like stair lift showers, wash dry toilets, we do that. We have discretionary. We only do that in Essex. Each council decides on their discretion whether they're going to remove it or not. But wouldn't that be a lovely national decision? It's now going to be, well, it's now it's now going to be a national priority for Wales. Each local authority has to redevelop their policy and do it as a discretionary at the moment. But I think if that doesn't happen, there will be push from Welsh Government, because they said that they if we didn't do it voluntarily, that they would bring in legislation to say that we have to do it. So that's a positive step forward in Wales. So and it's good to see that that's happening elsewhere, and that other authorities are using the RRO to its advantage.
I've been around so long that I remember when Essex was very sort of forefront in some of the information they published about housing and accessible housing. There used to be this sort of Bible that Essex produced, that we all used. Yeah, we all used it from, I'm talking 25, however many years ago. So, you know, Essex did have a very good core as far as, you know, being sort of innovative in those days. I don't know what, you know, obviously it's difficult when you've got all these different parts of a borough, but they were very, very good.
I think that comes down to lovely how government does decentralising and centralising. And what happened, our children's services stayed all lovely and centralised, a nice OT group for children and young people, but adults, they put an OT into all the social care teams. Suddenly it was like pulling the rug out from underneath us, and everything got lost because OTs now became qualified social workers. So what we're trying to do, we can't physically bring it back, but what we're trying to do is cut back to our core of what occupational therapy is actually to do in social care. And so my role, although I'm owned by Essex, I'm in partnership and the Better Care Fund, so I'm in partnership with the NHS and the local council to help local residents. So I report directly through to Essex, and I can have that conversation with all our 12 councils, but it's really a local offering that I'm here to sort of support. So hopefully Essex will get back up there. We will, I'm sure of it.
It sounds hugely complex. And you know, there's lots of moving parts and
two-tier local authority. That's what happens with them, isn't it?
I do thank my lucky stars that all the authorities in Wales are unitary authorities. And when I did work in England, I worked in London, so again it was a similar position. But it sounds like an absolute nightmare.
But within the membership, you've got a range of experience and knowledge, and you know, and obviously, you know, we've met you today, and I've never heard of a housing OT working with hospital discharges. I didn't know it existed.
We presented at conference at the RCOT conference probably about 2 or 3 years ago, or the last RCOT conference, the last actual sort of proper face-to-face. Or there was one this year that I missed. Probably, maybe I missed it. But
it wasn't at our housing conference.
No, it wasn't at the housing conference. No, it was up in Birmingham at the RCOT conference. No. That's interesting, isn't it?
You need to present at our conference. You need to do.
I was going to ask you, would you like to come and talk to us this year?
I am surprisingly shy. That's why
you may have volunteered yourself or something there.
Yeah. Got your name there.
Foundations have asked me to do something, so we'll see. I think foundations have asked me to do something because I'm Better Care, or we are Better Care funded, to sort of say how a partnership could work. And there are some real successes that we've got. So I think I might be doing a case study for them in February or March.
It sounds like there's some very positive innovation going on in Essex.
But it's a model that might work elsewhere, and other people might then be able to sort of put, you know, if people are aware that this is something you could sort of put a bid in for, or a suggestion for, because they're always looking for innovative ways of, you know, I mean, at the moment we're in a sort of like a borough crisis about hospital discharges and trying to sort of stop people being admitted, stop them getting them out quick enough, and you know, anything that those sort of partnerships are very important to share, to be honest.
Yeah, true. Well, absolutely, put me on the agenda for a good 6 minutes.
You're on.
But I think actually what your passion is coming through, Sheree, and you know, it's just showing that how you can use the Better Care Fund to actually make some real changes. and trying to collaborate across all those different authorities and trying to get everybody working in a similar way, which is the goal, really. And I think
we're not there yet. We've got a long way to go, but I think there might be some other people that we haven't spoken to.
But any forward progress is good progress. I mean, as I say, nothing's ever built quickly, is it? But you know, if you're doing some excellent work and we can share it elsewhere across the country, then if it has a benefit, if it has a tangible benefit, then it's time well spent. I know we've got Parag waiting there as well. How are you, Parag? I haven't seen you for quite a while.
Not so bad. I'm off. I'm muted because of a heavy cold and sore throat.
Oh no! Oh gosh!
Yes.
Oh, it's not COVID. It's not COVID, I hope.
I don't think so. I took a lateral flow there yesterday. I don't think so. It's going around. But I take it Shane updated you on the various developments in Northern Ireland recently.
We didn't have a massive in-depth discussion in the NEC yesterday.
All right. Yeah. Well,
but Shane is thankfully coming to talk to us in April.
All right.
About what's happening in your neck of the woods.
He's doing some great work, some fantastic work. I'm delighted. I've done some work with the reviewing the repository on law and policy for Northern Ireland with the Department of Health. So that when that's validated and signed off for the next program group, that should be ready for the website. So that'll update the so that's done. There's a couple of weeks work on it, but it's very enjoyable work. Again, there's a review of Shane's conducting a review of assistive technology and housing adaptations.
It's very topical at the moment, isn't it?
Right about trusts, yeah.
Tech.
So, but Shane will update you in detail. I'll not go into detail, but just say there's some very good progressive work kicking off there again, which is great to see. So okay, fantastic. So yeah, and great, Sherry. I think you be look at a role in the national executive. You have a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of expertise. Yeah, you're a good.
It's probably because I talk too much in the training sessions.
Oh no! You provide very good leadership, and no, it's very, very much appreciated.
Would you fancy doing any of the roles, Sherry?
Well, because I just happen to be in the southeast.
Well, it doesn't have to be the southeast.
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
I haven't ever done those sorts of things before, so I'd be flying blind. Unfortunately,
Neither have I.
Everyone down.
Neither had I. I have to admit, it's been a roller coaster, but it's been a valuable one. And I've learned a lot being on the NEC. But it's definitely something to consider if you've got the time to do it.
I think it's the networking, and actually it just builds the network even further. And you've got so I've done nothing like this before, and I still don't know how I ended up being web and social media, but I think I get more out of it. There's a real great bunch of people, members, but also the NEC I found just so supportive. And so if you fancy dipping your toe in, I would say
I'm interested. I just don't know what I could offer, because I'm a great follower. I'm not a very good leader, so I'd be a great second in charge of something.
If you want to come along to any of our NEC meetings, you're more than welcome to sit in and sort of see what we talk about and sort of what happens. By all means, if you want to drop me an email, we can perhaps set that up for our next one, which is in March. That was hopefully going to be in person, but it's moved to a virtual one now because RCOT still aren't. They're reviewing their position on whether they're going to allow face-to-face events to happen at HQ. So if you want to come along to that one and you're free, by all means, and if it gives you a flavour of, hopefully it'll encourage you to join the NEC. But it's an opportunity to see whether it's something that you want to explore. But definitely having somebody with your passion, skill and knowledge on the NEC would be amazing.
Thank you.
But no pressure.
You're here, but no pressure.
Is it worth saying, David, that the the sort of model of having shared posts is quite a good one. You know, you got two
yes,
people
thank you,
sharing
Farag,
them
yeah.
all. And that really, you know, you have sort of a mentoring sort of system built in there where people can support each other, just in terms of breaking down the workload and just sharing their skills.
I mean,
I
most
think it
regions
was
have
always
got-
easier when in the north when it was myself and Sarah, you know, and it has been very different when there's only been just one person. But I know that in Southeast, unfortunately both of the reps had to leave, didn't they? So there wasn't like just one vacancy. So, you know, it is hard.
So yeah, so sadly we've lost both of our reps in the Southeast. And
it was such a strong section as well, because it was
it's by far our largest.
Yeah,
it's by far the largest region. By far, I think there was probably, when I worked in London, we were probably doing an event once a quarter, which was
because Marnie was down there for a while when she lived in the south. She was one of the reps, but that's why we've inherited her up now in the north.
Lucky you.
Well, it's because I'm the least northern person. That's probably because I'm very close to you down in. You know, I'm from Portsmouth, where Sue comes from, not far from. But even though Portsmouth and Southampton don't like each other, but you know, I'm from next stop, France. But I think it's been really useful getting to meet some people, you know, different faces, and get to see and get a sense of what people feel they would like us to bring, but also identifying that people have also got a lot to bring.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and the suggestions made by Sue and you know, Angie and all of you have been very sort of useful for us as the NEC to sort of get an idea of what things we should be offering.
Yeah, and hopefully it's like we're just quite informal and friendly and open and, you know, welcoming, hopefully. And we love new enthusiastic members. Welcome you on board. Sorry, David.
No, thank you, Jill. You took the words right out of my mouth. But yeah, but it's really useful to connect with members and actually put names to faces and sort of see who you are, rather than just sort of you get blind emails going out, and sometimes it's, you know, it's touching back with grassroots to find out what people actually want. And we've got such a breadth of experience across a range of different areas of the country, and I think it's important to pull everybody in to try and to help everybody to network. And I think that's possibly the strength of the digital platform, is that people can come together if they want to or when they want to.
I think as OTs as well, sometimes when we don't think that we are the value that we've got, you know, the things that we do have got value, and some of the work that we've been doing is something that would be of interest to other people, because we just get on and do it.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, that there is so much going on out there that people are doing that, you know, we should promote ourselves a bit more.
I think also we tend to be in very small teams and quite isolated as a specialism within the profession, and actually being able to make those links and just kind of know that there are other people doing a similar job. That's one of the benefits.
It's knowing you're not alone, isn't it? Because sometimes you can be a lone practitioner.
Yes.
Sometimes it can be quite isolating. If you're in a team of other professionals and there's lots of them, and there's not so many of us.
It's the traditional thing of being the only OT in a room full of social workers.
Team. Yeah.
And you know, and those who aren't line managed by an occupational therapist, you know, all those kind of actually trying to find your network and your support isn't necessarily going to be within the same room or even the same building.
One thing I wanted to ask, in terms of timing, I know a 7 o'clock webinar is quite late, and by then I'm probably tired from the day of work, or I've had enough of sort of staring at screens. Our next few webinars are slightly earlier, but they are evening ones. If we're going to look to do some of our networking sessions, would a lunchtime or a morning session or sort of an early afternoon be better for you? I sort of asking Sheree, Sue, and Angie, because you guys are well, you guys are our members. Our members have turned up. We've been able to access tonight.
I think,
and also to our NEC members as well.
I think a mixture of times tends to catch. You're never going to find one thing that suits everyone.
No, you're never going to catch everybody. But if we can be as flexible as we can, so we can try and accommodate as many people as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, how have you found this one is late? Sorry.
Yeah, I would agree that a mixture is good, because sometimes it's possible to block out an hour during a work, depending on your caseload and your workload. It's not always possible.
Absolutely.
So I would agree with Sue that a mixture of daytime and evening would probably be best if that's possible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's key. I mean, one of the things we had when RCOT were in discussion with us about what was happening for this transition year with the new portal is that they wanted us to try and offer a fixed time. And one of those things seemed to be at the moment, it was easy to facilitate things in the evening because you wouldn't have to take time away from the day job. And now, I suppose now that we've been living with COVID a bit longer, we kind of know how things work. So none of the times of the evenings are not fixed. We can adjust those as we want because we have control over our platform and how we manage it and when we manage it. All we have to do is we do have to give RCOT a little, they need about 3 months notice for us to get the adverts in so you can see it on the website and in OT News and register. So I think possibly what we might do for the June webinar is, if everybody's agreeable, it might be worthwhile doing for the pediatric topics. We'll make that a pediatric drop-in topic, and then hope maybe we'll get a conversation going, and we'll get some ideas for conference, and get some more themes of what perhaps people want to find out, what people want to see. If not, we deliver it this year, but hopefully maybe in upcoming programs we can integrate that in. So we've got a wider approach to everything, hopefully. And again, linking with the adults and definitely some of the work that you're doing, Sheree, that would be fantastic to have a discussion around that. Not for you to present, just sort of, for it to be an open session for you to find out who else is doing what and put names to faces and just get links.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the kind of more informal chats would be better as a lunchtime hour drop-in session, where people may have looked at this and gone, there isn't a topic that I want to discuss, I'm not going to turn up. But actually, if it was 12:30 to 1:30, they might dip into some of that.
Yeah.
It's worth trying, isn't it, just to see whether or not we get a wider availability, because obviously people's evenings can be quite busy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
and precious.
Got life outside of work. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have to have a balance of, we have to practice what we preach. So having a balance away from screen time, back to family. The last thing you want to be doing is coming home from work and then thinking, I've got to. There's a webinar, but I can't be bothered to watch that. So I want to sit and read a book. So
the Housing Lynn tend to run their sessions around 4:30, and they seem to get quite a good turnout. So maybe sort of that end of the day when people are just wrapping up their stuff or finishing their visits or whatever it might not be too bad every now and again either.
Yeah, we've been running some sessions. I do a bit of work with the Housing Lynn and the Scottish Federation of Housing Associations, and we've been doing that like a happy hour type idea, 4 o'clock to 5:15. Get loads of people.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, because you can easily tack that onto the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then it's not necessarily eating into your lunchtime or your gym time or your leisure activity.
Gym time.
Well, some people might go to the gym. I don't. Was it gym or gin? Thank you very much. I think probably, what is the time now?
I think we've overrun.
It's 8:15. So it's been really great to see you, and thank you very much for coming out this evening. And hopefully we'll see you all in the next one, which will be in about 4 weeks' time.
And Sue, I hope you feel better soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
The joys of the job. I'm going to blame
And you, Porrig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Thanks very much, everybody. It's great to meet you, and great to see you. Yeah, see you all soon.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, sir.